Ladies, gentlemen, and Haradrim of all ages, we're now about 2.5 weeks out from the start of the early access of Diablo 4, and as much as we all agree that this game does have issues, it's not perfect, it definitely is a ton of fun anyways, and that's why we're all playing it as much as we are. For most of this time period, the devs were sending out updates like no tomorrow, hotfix here, hotfix there, hotfix frickin' everywhere, but over the last few days we've had a whole load of, well, nothing. That said, we've been promised a particularly large patch coming soon, a patch full of buffs for weaker parts of each class, things like minions for necromancers, and that's quite exciting, isn't it? But where is this patch? When should we expect it? Is it soon or not? And past that, of course, we'll also talk about anything the devs have hinted at being changed in the near future, as well as a couple of more interesting happenings within the community, such as a second person finding Shako, the Harlequins Crest unique, and why their finding it has totally changed our thoughts on exactly how it works. Without further ado then, let's start off with the big question: where is the patch? At the developer livestream that happened recently, the Campfire Chat this past Friday, there was a large focus on the existence of this absolutely massive patch, theoretically 13 pages of it, which of course is a ton of potential changes. A good portion of that is likely bug fixes, stability fixes, and if we're lucky, maybe a little bit of quality of life changes too, but we were explicitly told that it has a ton of buffs in it for different classes too, with the exact line set in relation to all the nerfs that we've had over the course of the hotfixes being, for the patch, in comparison, it's time for the buffs. That's exciting, right? So how soon can we expect this to happen? Well, you might think that guessing the time of a patch is totally impossible, but I tend to disagree, especially because we have a surprising amount of factors to consider here that can help us narrow it down specifically. First up, there are two important things. First, we knew this patch was in the works almost a week before the Campfire Chat stream. In tweets from the devs, they told people that there was a larger patch incoming, not just the hotfixes that had been streaming through, but an actual proper patch. On top of that, in that developer stream specifically, they actually said that the patch was going through certification, which is the process of the console people confirming that the patch is cool, won't do anything nasty to their systems, just a sort of final check, meaning that everything else is complete. The keyword is final. That means that at that point, the patch was theoretically completely finished on their end, tested by QA, all of that, and pretty much ready to go as soon as the certification process is completed. That indicates that the patch could essentially come to us just as soon as the devs decide that they want to. Past that, I've got two more pieces of evidence to present that I believe to be quite compelling.
So you're some kind of a lawyer?
The first one is the specific wording that they were using during the Campfire Chat. When talking about things like changes to Nightmare Dungeons, and in case you missed it, they are not only going to increase the XP rewards for doing Nightmare Dungeons, but also make it so that activating a sigil will let you teleport to that dungeon so that travel time will just be a thing of the past, and that's just incredible to me. But the specific thing that they said when that concept came up was that it will be added in a patch before Season 1. They gave a timeline of that of within 4 weeks or so. The thing to keep in mind on that is that if it was included in this upcoming big patch, what they would have said is in this big patch, but within 4 weeks implies not a part of the upcoming patch, but a part of a different patch that will come afterwards. Theoretically, they wouldn't release one patch right before the season starts, so let's say that the other patch is more likely somewhere around 3 weeks away, right? That would be another big patch more than likely, and they wouldn't release two of these back to back, as there would be no time to figure out what it has changed in the game properly, so there will likely be a patchless week in between these two patches, meaning that with that logic, this upcoming big patch that we've been promised is likely to be either this week or next week. But then we can get it even more specific than that because of, well, the hot fixes that we're dropping back to back for a while. In case you haven't really sat down and thought about it enough to work out the exact numbers, well, you may not have realized that we have had 11 hot fixes to Diablo 4 already, and the last one happened 13 days after the release of early access. That's right, 11 hot fixes in 13 days. That is an absolutely nutty rate of updates, right? Well, that said, what does tell us that there hasn't been another hotfix now for 5 days in a row? To me, it says that they don't want to change anything right before the patch because they know that it's right around the corner. That seems the obvious answer, but to me it also implies that the patch is like moments from release. Sure, it could be next week, but to me, if they have stopped doing the hotfixes until the patch is out, the patch is way more likely to not just be this week. Hell, I don't think it's entirely out of the question that you guys will watch this video, then within hours the patch could drop. It's entirely possible, but I think it's probably probably Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It will be this week in my mind. All of this to say, yes, this patch is massive. Yes, in theory, it will buff a lot of the weaker playstyles and let you play how you want to play, rather than just following what currently is the one build that your class can do that absolutely dominates. Or at the very least, it may well dethrone what is currently considered the best and open the playing field for more creative stuff to enter the mix and be just as powerful, which is my main hope. With that then, what have the devs been saying recently on social media that could tell us things about their plans? Well, today we only have one thing to share really, but well, honestly, I think that entirely plays into my theory that the patch is moments from release because they don't want to give anything away unnecessarily, so they've been keeping it very close to the chest the last few days. That said, we do have this tweet from Joseph Pipiora, the associate game director for Diablo 4, in which he just confirms that Nightmare dungeons have an increased drop rate of Ancestral and sacred items than any other content in the game, which is actually interesting for a couple of reasons. The first one is, of course, just farming gear in general. You want Ancestral gear to put your legendaries on when you're at higher levels in the game, that's just the way that it is, but bigger than that is the implications for unique items. I have always felt that unique seem to drop more frequently in Nightmare dungeons, but this pretty much confirms it for one specific reason. In World Tier 3, uniques will only drop as sacred uniques. In World Tier 4, uniques will only drop as ancestral uniques. You can't get a sacred unique in Tier 4, and you can't get a non-sacred unique in Tier 3, meaning that the only items that even have a chance of becoming unique in World Tier 4 are ones that are already rolled to be ancestral. And so an activity that has a higher drop rate of ancestral items by default has a higher potential drop rate of uniques. So that's a bit of good information to lock away in the memory banks and a good thing to think about when you're considering what to do today in Diablo 4. Past this, we have a genuinely interesting piece of information noticed by a user on Reddit, which is that higher level aspects are simply stronger. This only applies to flat number legendaries, not percentage legendaries or timed legendaries, resource-based legendaries, or the more specific simple effect legendaries, only the flat number increase ones. That said, up until now, we were under the impression that these legendaries simply got better with item power, right? And, well, they do get better with item power, but it appears that is not the only factor, and here is an example. Here's an ancestral legendary Ursine Horror Ring formed by Druid. It's upgraded to essentially be item power 795, which is pretty high. Well, its roll as well is a max roll within its range, mind you, and that is 2070 damage on the effect itself. Now let's dive into the Codex of Power, which generally speaking is full of minimum roll legendary effects, as we all know. Well, let's look at the aspect of Ursine Horror in here, and 2320 damage, which is about 12% higher than the max roll 795 item with that aspect on it naturally. Why is that the case? Well, it's because I am level 85, and apparently the game actually stealth upgrades flat numerical codex powers based on your level to the point that they can become even stronger than a max roll that drops naturally in regular gameplay. All that to say, before you go extracting a legendary power from a piece of gear and put it on another piece of gear, if you're above level 80, maybe have a check in your codex to see if that aspect is even higher than there, because apparently, well, it can be. Outside of that, we just have a slight update. The ultimate challenge of the game, so to say, the real final boss, is the level 100 Echo of Lilith boss. Super powered and incredibly difficult to kill, but as of recently we have confirmed kills of this super hard boss for every class in the game. Each class is capable of it, and later today we will actually have a full video breaking down the facts around this a little bit, so stay tuned if you're interested in that. Then finally we have confirmation of a second Shako dropping, another lovely Harlequins Crest unique. This one dropping for a player in Taiwan, and with some spicy bonus info as well. This is a big deal. It is a lot in a game with this many people playing that there's only 2 of these confirmed to have dropped so far, and just across the entire player base. The first one was pretty much to a max level character, and with that people started to make some assumptions, things like, oh, you have to be at least level 90 to have this drop, oh, it only drops in super high tier Nightmare dungeons then, things like that. However, this has been totally debunked because this second Shako dropped for a player at level 87. So not only were they obviously not level 90, they also weren't doing super high tier dungeons either, unless they're an absolute god clearing tier 90 sigils before level 90. Point being, our assumptions were wrong, and the potential drops for this item have absolutely increased. Specifically, this means that it definitely drops before level 90, and it doesn't require high tier Nightmare dungeons to have drop either. This leaves us with one confirmed criteria and one bit of speculation as well. The one definite thing that we know for sure is that this item must drop drop in World Tier 4. The game itself tells you that more uniques are added to the pool in World Tier 4, and without a doubt, one of those is definitely Shako given his rarity and power. Past this then, it's possible that it can drop at any time in World Tier 4, and only has happened to do so at a minimum of level 87, but what's more likely is that there is a minimum level that it will start to drop at, and the next reasonable one to assume would actually be level 80, partially because of that whole world boss bug thing. A while ago, world bosses in World Tier 4 had their level boosted to specifically be level 90 no matter what, which is fine, but the result was that the Grand Cash weekly rewards now required level 80 to open, which is a big problem for anyone who is under level 80. The dev stated that that itself was a bug, but it does leave us wondering if there's a reason that this bug happened. What if level 80 is particularly important for some reason? Like, oh, you know, I don't know, maybe that's the level that Shako starts to drop. Obviously we don't know for sure, but it seems like a reasonable possibility in my mind. That just about does it for today then, just some speculation about the patch, a tiny roundup of what the devs have been saying, and then some updates from the community playing the game themselves. I hope you've enjoyed this breakdown of news in Diablo today, and hopefully we will see that patch full of buffs sooner rather than later, and hopefully it will just be full of buffs, you know, and doesn't actually break some of the more fun playstyles that we already have. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world our stage. Goodbye.